So now we're going to move on to thinking about some arguments against near-death experiences. So we've seen that, based on this evidence that we've seen here from near-death experiences, the argument that people who defend NDs are and these into the afterlife are going to give is roughly this. So premise one, people have experienced near-death experiences. This, whether or not it's phrased really nicely, experiencing comes up twice. This is pretty much a irrefutably true premise. It seems like, as we've said, we've got to take for granted that people are not lying about the things they've experienced, and they've been near death and they've had these kind of strange experiences. The second premise is going to be the idea that we cannot explain near-death experiences unless we appeal to an afterlife, or unless there is an afterlife. And spoiler, this is going to be the premise that we're going to try and reject here. So we're going to try and provide explanations for what people have experienced with regards to their NDEs, without saying that therefore there is an afterlife. So this is the kind of conclusion here. So if we accept these two premises, then we've got to accept that an afterlife exists, or at least that it's reasonable to believe in an afterlife. So how might we reject this kind of second premise here? So one argument might be coming from Karol Zaleski, who's done some research into near-death experiences, especially looking at the kind of sociology of them, thinking about how they come up in different cultures. So Zaleski found in her research that the experiences that people have when they're close to death actually vary based on the culture that they're from, specifically what the culture's expectations of death are like. So this is a quote from the Stanford Encyclopedia article looking at this evidence. Quote, in Western NDEs, there is often a, quote, spirit guide who counsels the experiencer that it is better that he or she should return to life. In India, on the other hand, the person is often turned back with the information that there has been a clerical error in the paperwork, so that it was by mistake that he or she came to this point. And there's an exclamation mark here, because this is meant to be some really interesting evidence, which is that instead of, as much as we said that there are kind of common experiences that people have, it seems like there's something interesting if, based on the culture that you're from, your experience of the afterlife is going to be different. And one of the things that this suggests is that, maybe people aren't experiencing the actual literal afterlife. Instead, they're kind of having a kind of projection from their mind about what they expect the afterlife to be like. And if we accept that that's the explanation of their experience, then that doesn't actually tell us anything about whether the afterlife exists. It tells us something about what people believe the afterlife might be like, and then their brain is kind of projecting that into their experience. But it doesn't tell us anything about there being positive evidence for life after death. So it seems like this kind of cultural variation is going to be something that is pretty good evidence for how we can explain near-death experiences without appealing to the existence of the afterlife, and thereby rejecting our premise too. So other arguments against near-death experiences might be that near-death experiences are caused by the death of the brain. So these are things that we can explain kind of completely biologically. So one of the things that we might say is that near-death experiences are generated to kind of calm us down as we die by detaching us from our identity. So this is something that has been proposed by some people. So this kind of depersonalization effect is going to be something that's going to kind of be evolutionary advantageous, because it prevents you from having all these terrible experiences when you die, and means that people are kind of calmer when they die versus what they'd otherwise be. So again, how could this kind of happen? What's the kind of mechanism for this? So if we think about, what often happens when you're dying, there's a loss of blood flow to your brain, lack of oxygen, abnormal functioning of dopamine and kind of other hormones. And so you get this kind of big conjunction of factors as to where the normal way that your body is used to working and working effectively is suddenly thrown all out of whack. And this could be something that causes kind of hallucinations. And so maybe we could explain near-death experiences kind of hallucinations caused from this kind of major malfunction of these kind of bodily faculties within the brain. So another thing that might kind of go on to support this is the idea that, out-of-body experiences, some evidence has shown, they can actually be induced. So these are things that we can kind of reliably cause to happen by stimulating certain parts of the brain. So it seems like the brain kind of has the capacity to produce these kinds of experiences, whether or not you're actually dying. And so maybe the kind of experience that people have of feeling detached from their body, these out-of-body experiences, aren't things that are best explained by being close to death and experiencing the afterlife. More so, it's to do with specific kind of malfunctions in the brain or specific areas of the brain working in ways that they don't normally work.